Okay, so I got some AdventureHex tiles that I'm working on. Should be a lot of fun. I decided that putting together the millions of little tiles was kind of a pain for storage, and it really wasn't enough to write an adventure on. So I came up with this idea of just doing adventure tiles. So it's basically, I created my original. It's a little hard to see. Yeah, there you go. So the lighting's a little bad. Let me adjust that. That doesn't work either. So anyway, I want to create an adventure tile from this. So what I did is I created used my little hot glue, created my mold, and then of course I cast my silicone inside the mold. And when you take it out, it gives you something that looks like this. Of course, I've already done a cast on it, so I'm gonna cast one right now, just because it's fun. So you really shouldn't, it's kind of one of those mottos, never cast where you eat, or something like that. I'm never cast where you paint, but I'm gonna break that rule because this is where my camera is set up. So here is my dental dye stone plaster, and I have this cool little scoop for it, and I've got my cup of water ready to go. So I'm gonna scoop up some dental plaster, see if I can get enough out of this final bag. I'm gonna go ahead and pour that in there. The real professionals would measure everything, which of course I do all the time. So let's get that all mixed up. This is the same thing they do when they go to the dentist and they cram that gunk in your mouth and tries to slide down your throat. It's pretty gross. What they do when you're not looking is they create a plaster mold of your jaw, and then they design your teeth against it. So we're using the same stuff. So I got it mixed up pretty good. Not worried about bubbles here. That's the cool thing about field stone is it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to go ahead and pour it into my mold. And you can't see what I'm doing right now, but I'm going to lift it up and show you. And I'm using my stick to get into all the cracks. If I can do this without spilling, which I can't, that's what you get. So I'm going to level this out by just putting it back on the table and using my handy dandy little scraper tool, tape knife, and I'm going to level that all out. So let's get that tidied up a bit. And like a baking show, I'm going to set this to the side, and it's going to miraculously cure. So this is my AdventureHex cast mold, which you can buy. You just pop it out, and there's your AdventureHex, which is kind of cool. Got a little flashing on it, so we're going to trim that off a little bit. Just comes right off. And now you've got a fresh AdventureHex ready to paint and do whatever you want with. So we hope you'll consider buying a mold. We like selling them, and then you can just make as many of these as you want to. So it's kind of an exciting way to go. Anyway, that's our AdventureHex mold, and we'll be coming out with cool new patterns. If you want to check out our Kickstarter, you can just Google for 28mm floor silicone molds, or Google for Illusionist Investment Group, and you'll find the Kickstarters that we have currently going for these. Now that I've done that, that creates the unpainted version of this, which is cool. I like the design. What I did, got a little plaster on me here. What I've done is created my original, and I put, you can sort of see the hexagons. So basically these are 1-inch hexagons all across this. And I debated on how to set up my adventure hexes, but I decided having a hex where there was one central mini hexagon and one on each corner would be the best, which oddly enough requires 7 hexagons across on a 6-sided polygon. So the math just seemed to work out. I like just having a center point. To me, it seemed mathematically more accurate. I've got a nice hex here. Plus, it's compatible now with my hexagon molds that I created on my Kickstarter. So if you're interested in buying some molds to do this, you can actually buy the molds themselves. which is kind of cool. This mold also that I have is for sale up at rpgstore.com. You can pick that up. They're about $30 to $50, kind of expensive, but the nice thing is once you have the mold, you can cast as many of these as you want. And now for my Mythoard subscribers, I'm sending them AdventureHexes. If you have Mythoard complete, you'll get the nice 3-dimensional version. But not to be deterred, I have plans in place for my 2D friends. So if you have the regular Mythoard subscription, you're still going to get an AdventureHex. It's just going to be printed out. So you can play along just the same. I decided to mount mine on foam core, and I've created some really cool AdventureHexes that I like. Of course, we'll have these professionally printed on chipboard so that it won't squiddle around on you. And we're also creating, ordering in some table-sized inverted mouse pads. So basically that mouse pad kind of texture, and you can lay your hex tiles on top of it and they don't slide around. That's kind of cool. And every hex tile has 2 sides. So this would be an example of a gatehouse, and this would be an example of just a regular wall. So you can flip it depending on what you need. Also got opposing ones. So hexagons are weird. When you want to do a straight wall, that would be one of the walls. But the way hexagons work is they have to mate with the right kind of wall. So you can see how that works. Sorry. It mates like that. So you can see that on the opposing side is the opposite version you need. So no matter which one you have, you can just flip it around and make all the walls that you want. So it's kind of cool. I love these. Really neat thing about this is with just 4 hexagons, you can have a whole campaign session on just that if your dungeon master knows how to create enough adventure in one location. If you're the roving type and like to cruise all over the planet, that's not going to work for you. But for those localized dungeon crawls, I think it's pretty cool. Or hex crawls, of course. So anyway, now I'm on the painting phase, and I've gone ahead and done a ink wash. Nothing expensive here. All I did is I took craft paint and cheap craft paint. I mixed it, well, 1 part water, 2 parts paint, because I like to get a nice dark look in the cracks. So basically you just wash it like crazy. And then you take your dry brush, and I have a gray here, and you dry brush over the top. So I've already finished my gray dry brush over the top. I didn't really like how plain it looked, and so now I'm going to show you how I put some variety into it. So you can see what I've done here is I've taken 2 shades of paint. I've got my dark brown and my tan. Again, just regular craft paint. You don't have to spend big money on these. If you have the Mythoard crafting crate, we sent some of these colors out to you in all 3 colors. And basically I'm just pretending I'm a stonemason, dwarven stonemason, or delver, because that's our new module coming out, Delver's Keep. And you're just pretend you're putting stones. They're not going to put all the same color stones down, and they're going to have some variation. So we're going to kind of emulate that as we do our dry brush. So now I'm just taking the light tan, because I've already done the dark tan, the dark brown color, and I'm going to go ahead and highlight different stones. And it's okay that it's a little bit bright, because we're going to go through and ink wash it over the top again, and that'll tone it right down. So normally you do this with a little more precise brush, but I'm after speed today, and we're just gonna tidy these up and get us some nice variety of color. So you can see how look how much better that looks now that you're getting a little bit of variation in the stones. Some are bright, some are not. Some you can dry brush really lightly, whereas others you may want to put a lot more definition on. So while I finish this, I'll talk through the Dwarven crate. The Delver's Keep. So we've got this really fun module coming out. It's one that I've written myself, and that Delver's Keep is going to have a nice foreword written by a famous author. I can't tell which yet because I got to find out who said yes. But we're going to put that module in the next Mythoard box that comes out. If you're not familiar with what we're doing with our new Mythoard boxes, we're trying to put enough story and accessories and maps to let you have an entire gaming session with a crate. I've always wanted to tell some stories that I had tucked away in my mind. And as I get on in age, it's nice to let some of those out before I kick off this planet. So that's kind of my goal with the crate, and I hope you enjoy coming with me while we go through that. But I've loved dwarves ever since I was a little kid, and I think they have some really cool stories. So this module is just all about dwarves. We call them the Delver, and I've put the setting in this wasteland, and there's nothing around it except this strange sylvan fountain that was left, and nobody knows what it's there for. Of course, you'll find out. And the Delver are the dwarves that have been left in charge of the keep to protect against something, and that's what the campaign is all about. The players get to go in there and delve into Delver's Keep. There's some interesting political factions which I've outlined in the module, so there's ways of tackling campaign that a lot of different ways you can conquer it. Won't give away too much because it's fun to read the module without giving away too many surprises. But you are going to be learning about black rock, which is one of the magical substances that's mined from a place called the Below. And there's some fantastic artwork by Freddie Lopez. He's just one of the best artists I've ever worked with. I told him the other day that if he keeps up the speed with which he's able to deliver the art, I just don't think I'll have to hire another artist ever. That's not entirely true, but his art's just phenomenal, and I love working with him because I've worked with a lot of artists who they're really proud of their art, which they should be, but sometimes they let the art become a job, and then it just isn't as fun for them, and you can tell that you're set a deadline and you have paid the money, and they're still, they got problems in their life, whatever. Stuff comes up, but with Freddie, it's always, he's like, oh my gosh, your module's so cool, and whether he's telling the truth or not, which I'm sure he is, hopefully, at least he pretends to be excited about my project, which makes me more excited about it. And what I've found is now when I do my story writing, I actually have him do the artwork first, and then I totally write my story around the inspiration of his artwork. So if you ever need a great artist, I highly recommend you look up Freddie Lopez. He's super talented. If you're a Harry Potter fan, I think, I'm not sure, I think it's his wife, does wands and all kinds of other stuff too. So there's a total creative partnership there, which is kind of fun. So you can see we're starting to add some variety and dimension to the adventure tile. I think it looks pretty good. Adding a little more detail and just get more randomness in there if I can. I try not to space it out evenly. Sometimes I'll group them together, sometimes I'll spread them apart, but that way you're getting some nice variety and it looks somewhat realistic. Sometimes I even blend the two colors, especially when I make a mistake with a brush. We call that character. So anyway, the adventure hexes are kind of cool because they're big enough to tell a whole story on. So I've got quite a few other guys who are writing stories for us. Gregory Lentz is another one, and Stephen Yeardley. So if you are an aspiring writer and you've decided that you want to get published, we're more than happy to take a look at your work. The way we work is we prepay the first one, no questions asked, and you just give us your rate and we sign you up. So we basically we buy before we try, I guess is the way to say it. But we found that's a pretty effective way to discover new talent and get some people in on publishing role-playing games that not everybody's been able to do, and sometimes it's a lot more drudgery than people want to take care of in their busy lives. So anyway, looks pretty good. That's a base adventure hex. Now where do I go next from this? Well, if you notice, I have this adventure hex tile that is an interior of a keep with a touch of dwarven walls that come up and down for a corner. So my next iteration, the first AdventureHex is going to be relatively plain. Because the cool part is you always need base hexes, right? So we're going to go and get some base hexes going to you. They will be unpainted. I don't have time to paint hundreds of adventure hexes, although I'd love to do that for you. But we do give these tutorials on how to paint, but they'll come out looking really nice. I really think they're fun. And what we're going to come out with next are adventure hexes that have the walls coming up. So if you're a Mythoard Complete subscriber, all of our Mythoard subscribers are going to get the two-dimensional adventure hex. But the Mythoard Complete subscribers and subscribers for other crates like Tanker's Tavern crate, and depending on what game system you like, you can optionally subscribe. Like, let's say you don't like OSR rules, you prefer Savage Worlds. We have Savage Crate, so you'll get the same adventure hex, same storyline, but it's going to have the Savage Worlds rules in it. And similarly for Troll Lord, so if you like Castles and Crusades, you get the same adventure hex, but it has the Castle and Crusades rules in it. So we don't really care what game system you like. We're going to do these for every game system that comes out. When you get your first module, I want you to take a look at the Any System UPC, not UPC, QR codes in the corners of the pages. So there's going to be some pages where there's stats, or you'll look at the page and be reading the story and it says, hey, there's this magic item or there's this character, and you'll say, well, where's the stats for it? Well, what we've decided is, instead of publishing books that have stat-specific information in it, we've created the Any System tool. So the Any System tool is designed to let me publish a book, and you just download the app for whatever rule system you like. So if you like the 5e version of our book, you just download the 5e Any System app, and you point it to that QR code, and it gives you all the stats in 5e for everything that you just read in that module. So I think it's a pretty cool way to get you the best bang for the buck. It's very expensive and costly to print things. That's why a lot of companies will simply send you the digital files. And while I like that, and the PDFs are definitely available for our subscribers, which you can download for free at rpgstore.com. It just adds the printing cost, and I don't think, a lot of companies struggle because they just don't have the money to do the conversions for all their books. Well, if you are a publisher and you want to use our Any System tool, we give it out for free to people. So you're welcome to use it at no cost if you're a publisher, as long as you put the link to where people can get the Any System apps downloaded onto their computers. So anyway, that's our tutorial for realistic stone texturing. I'm going to put an ink wash on top of it, which I'll do that now, just so you can take a look. Now that I've got my plain texture, I've got that mixture of wash, and watch what I do. It looks like I'm ruining my project, but I've ink washed, and you can see that as I blot this off, basically it's just paint that I've mixed with water to give it a nice texture. And now you can see I'm weathering those model colors. It kind of subdues them a little bit more, makes them look a little bit older, and you get rid of those garish light tans, and now you can see it really pops. So, makes a mess of your hands, but basically blotting that off and just washing it with diluted paint gets all of those colors kind of toned down quite a bit. Makes it look really good. So I think that's a nice way to go. Anyway, give us a look and come adventure hex with us.